In this video, we are going to talk about The Fast and the Furious 2001 movie. We will discuss the movie story, its plot, and explain the cast and characters. We will also talk about the box office of the movie. We will review the movie and share some personal reactions. Let's begin. The Fast and the Furious remember summer movies from the days when they were produced by American International and played in drive-ins on double features. It's slicker than films like Grand Theft Auto, but it has the same kind of brat spirit. It wants to raid its batters and carry off the loot. It doesn't have a brain in its head, but it has some great chase scene and includes the most competent cop who ever went undercover. According to the in a word guy who narrates the trailer, the movie takes place in a world beyond the law. It stars Vin Diesel, the bald-headed, fog-faced action actor who looks like a muscular Otto Preminger. He plays Toretto, a star of a forbidden sport of street racing, and rockets his custom machine through Los Angeles at more than 100 mph before pushing a button on the dashboard and really accelerating. Thanks to a nitrous oxide booster, he also runs a bar where his sister Mia, played by Jordana Brewster, serves tuna salad on whiteboard no crust every day to Brian, played by Paul Walker, who looks a little like white bread no crust himself. Brian hangs out there because he wants to break into street racing and because he likes Mia. Treto's gang is hostile to him, beats him up, disses him, and he comes back for more. He ends up winning Treto's friendship by saving him from the cops. The races involves cars four abreast at Speedway speeds down city streets. This would be difficult in Chicago, but is easy in Los Angeles because, as everybody knows, LA has no traffic and no cops. Actually, Brian is a cop assigned to investigate a sting of multi-million-dollar truck hijacking. The hijacks around an 18-wheeler with three Honda Civics shoot out the window on the passenger side, fire a cable into the cab, and climb into the truck at high speeds. This makes for thrilling action sequence when it works and an even more thrilling action sequence when it doesn't. In a chase scene that approaches but does not surpasses the climax of the Road of the Warriors during the chases. We observe that there is no other traffic on the highway, just the trucks and the Hondas. Anyone who has ever driven a Honda next to an 18-wheeler will know that a MC is the wiser choice, but never mind. And only a hopeless realist would observe that leaping through the windshield of a speeding truck is a dangerous and inefficient way of stealing VCRs. In Chicago, the crooks are more prominent and steal from parked trucks, warehouses, and other unmoving targets. Strato should try it. Anyway, Brian at first seems just like a guy who wants to race, but it is revealed as a cop in an early scene, although not so early that the audience has not guessed it. He works for a unit that has its undercover headquarters in a Hollywood house. And as he enters in his boss, say Eddie Fisher built this house for Elizabeth Taylor is in the 1950s. I'm thinking this is almost certainly true and it would not be set in a movie so stingy with dialogue and in this the first time Paul has seen his unit's office. One of the nice things about the movie is the way it tells a story and explains its characters. It's a refreshing change from such no plot, all action movies as gone in 60 seconds. We learn a little about Trito's father and his childhood, and we see Paul and Mia falling in love. Although I think in theory you are not supposed to date the sister of a guy you are undercover to investigate. Mitchell Rodriguez, the star of the underappreciated boxing movie Girl Fight, co-stars as a member of the hijack gang and gets to land one solid right on a guy's jaw just to keep her credentials. The Fast and the Furious is not a great movie, but it delivers what it promised to deliver and knows that a chase scene is supposed to be about something more than special effect. It has some of the grandiose, self-partying dialogue we have tried in movies like this ever since Rebel Without a Cause. I live my life a quarter mile at a time, Trato tells Brian for those 10 seconds. I am free, and they even for the next 30 seconds, he is decelerating. The Fast and the Furious 2001. Brian Spillner spent 3 weeks coming to a giant owned by Dom Toretto, leader of the hottest drag racing gang in the city, along with his girlfriend Letty, trying to get in his good graces. He also starts flirting with Dom's sister Mia, gaining the enmity of Dom's crew member Vinchu, who is also interested in her. They get in a fight, which gets Tom to ban Brian from the dinner and even try to get him fired from his mechanic job with the same company who works on the gang's cars. Brian is now deterred and hooked up a nitrous oxide system to his car and which will supercharge the engine and enters the next race with his car as collateral. With the nose help, he early catches Tom, but the speed ends up overstressing the car and wrenching its engine. The cops raid the race after it's over, and when Tom is caught out of his car, Bran comes to his rescue. This finally gets Dom's respect, and they share that they have both done prison time for stealing cars, with Dom swearing he will die before going back. The police chase takes them into the territory of Chinese gangster Johnny Tan, who hates Tom after a deal gone bad. Johnny and his cousin Lancy destroy the car before Dom can take possession, and after taking a cab home, Dom is outraged to see the gang has been having a party while he was missing, which gets him to invite Brian in, though Brian is also still in debt for the car. The next day, Brian is pulled over and arrested, which is revealed to be a front of anyone watching, as he is actually Brian O'Connor, a cop working undercover to catch street racers who are robbing electronics in transit with three Honda Civics. FBI supervisor Bikinis is losing patience and insists Dom be arrested as the top suspect, but Brian asks to have a few more days to get hard evidence. The race MC Hector orders parts matching the Civics and Brian breaks into the garage and finds the cars are indeed there. But Vince was following him and takes him to Tom under suspicion of being a cop. Brian claims he was just scoping out the competition for the upcoming race wars in the desert so he could clear his debt. And together they also take a look at Johnny's garage. Johnny comes back and they are forced to hide and witness him confronting his fence Todd over double dealing on the new car's engine. Bilkins now wants to bring Tit in as a witness, but Brad still insists he can get better evidence. He also double Dom in the thief as he is too controlled, but his boss Tunner brings up an incident where Dom nearly beat a man to death with a wrench. Soon enough, Tom himself revealed the full story that he was going to follow his father into legitimate racing until his father was killed when another driver bumped him during a race. Dom beat the man in a blind rage, which got him banned from the sport and sent him into his crut life. He still keeps his father's charger in the garage but has never worked up the courage to drive it himself. The thief zipped another truck and Brian is in bed with Mia when Turner calls for confirmation to arrest Johnny, forcing him to agree to end the quick call. After the arrest of Johnny's whole gang, the FBI is forced to release them for lack of evidence, and Bilkins gives Brian just one more day to make his case. With Tanner encouraging him to accept it really is Tom, Brian implies to Tom that he knows about the heist and wants in. So Tom agrees to let him into Race Wars to see what he has got. At Race Wars, Tom's man GC goes up against Johnny, having bit his father's car. Johnny wins due to his own Knox rigs, and Jesse freaks out so much he simply keeps driving and abandons everyone. Johnny then accuses Dom of ratting him out to the cops, starting a fight between the gangs. This gets Dom desperate enough to pull one last hit. Despite knowing the truck drivers are now much better prepared to help him, Brian is forced to reveal to Mia that he's a cop, and together they trace Tom's cell phone and head off to save him. The truck driver who Dom targets turns out to be armed with a shotgun, and Vince ends up trapped on the truck hood with the driver stopping any attempt to help him, including crushing Letty's car. Finally, Bran arrives and is able to get Vince out with some especially daring maneuvers, but he is still badly injured, and Brian has to reveal he's a cop to everyone to get an ambulance in time. Brian catches up with Tom at his house, and their confrontation is interrupted when Jesse arrives. Soon after, Johnny and Lance drive up and shoot at everyone, killing Jesse. Brian and Dom again put their difference to the side to get payback, Dom even driving his father's Charger for the first time after Johnny is killed and Lance injured and left to be arrested. Brian goes back after Dom, who challenged him to race over a railroad trace as a train approaches. Both of them barely make it, but then Dom crashes into a truck, leaving him injured and the Charger wrecked. As the other police start to arrive, Brian reminds Tom he owes a car and hands over the keys to his owes so Tom can escape, with Brian staying to face the consequences. The Fast and the Furious movie 2001 stars Vin Diesel, Brian O'Connor. Speed, adrenaline, and distinct lack of intelligence. Those are characteristics that could easily be ascribed to street racing and underground sports phenomenon that keeps the police busy in some communities. The same adjectives can be used to describe the Fast and the Furious. Rob Cohen's films about crime, underground cops, and street racing with storyline that would be rejected by most undercover cop shows. The Fast and the Furious seeks to entertain viewers not by presenting a compelling narrative with well-defined character but by high-octane car chases that will leave some audience gasping for breath. As a filmmaker, Cohen doesn't have a sterling reputation. First of his more high-profit projects have been the Skulls and Daylight, so it should come as no surprise that The Fast and the Furious is not a model of artistic integrity. The film tells the story of an undercover cop, Brian, played by Paul Walker, who infiltrates a street racing team headed by Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel. But racing is not all Dominic is suspected of. The cops believe he is the leader of a gang that hijacks trucks. It's Brian's job to earn Dominic trust, then bust open the crime ring. Unfortunately for Brian, he falls for Dominic's sister Mia, played by Jordana Brewster. The story is overly familiar and the characters are all types, but Cohen's cinematic technique make the Fast and the Furious watchable. As the title suggests, the film never lets up, it wrestles and happy active, jittery and explosive. The movie is no more intelligent than high profile draws like Pearl Harbor, but it's shorter and more fun. This movie has guilty pleasure written all over it. It's the kind of film you can walk into late, immerse yourself in for more 90 minutes. Then forget about the moment you walk out of the theater. This is popcorn entertainment at its purest. There's nothing pretentious going on here. In keeping with the MTV style editing and radioactive camera movement, Cohen uses a cast of largely unknown but attractive actors. Top billing goes to Vin Diesel, the charismatic Breton who played the convict in Pitch Black and gave the title character its voice in The Iron Giant. Diesel is an actor to watch. He has the potential to go for less impressive is Paul Walker, who appears in Con the Skulls, a cookie cutter Southern California blonde with minimal acting talent. Majel Rodriguez, the lead in Girl Fight, uses her snarls and pows to good advantage as the unwritten Letty. Dominic's sexy girlfriend and Jordana Brewster offers a nice mix of sensuality and innocence. Korn's style consistently shows each actor to his or her best advantage in every scene. It's difficult to write a review or of substance about something so vicious. Really, all the Fast and the Furious effect is a bunch of good-looking people racing along street in cars that go fast, faster, and fastest. The vehicles looks as cool as the men and women driving them. There's a token bad guy or two, a little gunplay, and a few protects, but overall, this movie is all about racing. And when it comes to capturing a sense of the sport, the Fast and the Furious beats driven by several laps. Do I recommend the film? Only if you are in the mood for something that will elevate the pulse and numb the mind. Fast and the Furious 2001 is directed by Rob Cohen and cast goes to Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Mitchell Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, Rick Yune, Matt Scholes. The screenplay goes to Gary Scott Thompson and Eric Berquist and David Dare. Cinematography is Erickson Core, Jonathan Taylor. Music by BT. US distributor is Universal Picture. Runtime is 145 minutes. The release date is 6/22 in 2001. Gender is action and theoretical aspect ratio is 185:1. Fast and the Furious the 2001 is a high-speed roller coaster ride of thrilling, high-octane action. It certainly doesn't waste time with intricate plots and cleverly developed character, but then that would defeat the whole point of it. The film is a must-see for everyone into the world of racing and performance cars and should see for those looking for an action-packed bit of escapism. As the name suggests, the Fast and the Furious is fast and with the excellent soundtrack blasting out, there's no chance to leave for more popcorn halfway through. Director Rob Cohen set out to convey the underlying rush of intelligent street racing and achieve it in very scene. The sense of rivalry with the aim of gaining power and respect on the streets of Los Angeles is what this film is all about. But this comes at a price, and to fund this is a way of life for Dominic Toretto and his gang. They turn their skills to lorry hijacking. Undercover cop Brian Splinter, played by Paul Walker, has the job of investigating the hijacking carried out by the gang as he works his way into the underworld. He discovers a strong loyalty, and when he gets involved with Trato's sister Mia, his newfound intelligence is tested to be limited. The powerful Netros injected cards play as much as part as the actors and are sometimes more impressive, particularly than the lead role played by an unaspiring Walker who has to be fair, probably cost of his looks rather than his acting ability. The dialogue for all the character is kept short and to the point which leaves more time for action scenes, some of which ran alongside other films of the same style, such as Goon in 60 Seconds, aspect a familiar storyline, which I am sure will remind many of films such as Point Break and Drop Zone. Although not groundbreaking, The Fast and the Furious accomplish that it sets out to do, so prepare for a non-stop, high-velocity nitrous burning spectacular with thanks to the Warner Village Cinema at Clifton Moore Center, York. The Fast and the Furious movie reviews. Gearheads and race car aficionados maintain a fondness for speed and sleek-looking automobiles. It does not matter that those things generally come brand not included since there's little intellectual appeal in the raw layer of cars. They are about emotional, the thrills and escape and vitalness they provide. They consume attention and money as they are built upon and improved, providing a culture of Destron injected nerds with their own brand of fanaticism, which is turned as spawns a subgenre of movies. The same can be said for Trekkies and comic book divorce. The Fast and the Furious are mind-numbing generic flick about criminal street racers presents his culture of ethicists as nothing short of bad to the bone men obsessing over their sports car, if only to size them up against the competition. Almost as democratic as a locker room made of the Vigo discussion about turbo and letters propel the technical Jordan, setting up a ward where auto trader subscriptions holder will feel right at home. Essentially a rip-off of Point Break, the plot involves undercover cop Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker using his omnipresent suffer dude voice. O'Connor attempts to find the criminal responsible for a crash of semi-truck robberies by penetrating Los Angeles underground street racing scene. His target is Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel, the leader of a too cool for school racing gang. Toretto's band of glorified thieves drives about in Honda Civics, centurizing their cars in shape like arrows and such, causing us to wonder when they practice their choreography. Racing scenes enhanced by capturized special effects make the ensuing film wrought with numerous uninvolving chases and head-to-head competitions. Implausible and silly, thinking of the realism and excitement of pictures like Grand Prix and Ronin makes one readily condemn a movie like The Fast and the Furious, which does not bother trying of realism when the ease of CGI exists. However, Hollywood has seen too many stunt driver accidents, so bravado driving sequences are more often than not a thing of the past. Forced to watch the dumb expression on Walker's face we adore as the story unfolds, O'Connor's falls for Trato's sister, Jordana Brewster, and question his alliance to the LAPD. Soon O'Connor and Trato are best of pals, causing us to consider why crime boss is always illogical beefnet the undercover cop in movies. There's a talk of lots about race wars, but the movie never follows through with an elaborate racing tournament. Instead, the driffy yarn about cops and crooks proceed as planned, complete with its sword coming from a mile away ending. Written by more names than I care to list within this review, it's the type of movie where the cops stink, iced defect cappuccino, and the motor brine guzzle down beer and the occasional snapple. Trashy babes dripping with oil are around every corner, presenting their coverage air as much as the PG-13 rating will allow. And the colorful dragged out foreign car receives more mouth-watering digs from car aficionados in the audience than the women who seems like mere garnish to the vehicular main course. With a mundane story and underlying rushes that peter out before they begin, The Fast and the Furious gets appeal to Puritane and hardcore car junkies. Shot without a single exciting racing scene throughout, director Rob Cohen's film feed is arduous junk food from a recipe of high-speed cars, decorative women, and lame action. Cohen's cars is populated by an endless list of brick walls, each more robotic in their acting than the last, and his approach to style in loud and raucous but hardly lives up to the title. The movie is directed by Ron Khan, PG-13, and runtime at 107 minutes. Cinematic flashback to the Fast and the Furious 2001 movie. I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Nothing else matters, not the mortgage, not the store, not my team, and all their bullshit. For those 10 seconds or less, I am free, and this is the Monster Staple quote from 2001 Fast and the Furious movie and latest cinematic flashback review. The Fast and the Furious, if you have what it takes, you can have it all. Directed by Rob Cohen and the release date is 2nd June 2001. The story of the movie. Los Angeles street racer Dominic Toretto falls under the suspicion of the LAPD as a string of high-speed electronics truck robberies rocks the area. Brian O'Connor, an officer of the LAPD, joined the ranks of Toretto's highly skilled racing crew undercover to convict Toretto. However, O'Connor finds himself both enamored with his new ward and in love with Toretto's sister Mia. As a rival racing crew against Trench, O'Connor must decide where his loyalty really lies. My thoughts. With Hobbs and Shaw or Fast and Furious present Hobbs and Shaw, the first spin off motion picture and over in this cinematic series coming on soon, I decided to take a little trip down this franchise. Back to the beginning feature film to where it all started. Yes, I'm talking about the 2001 original movie The Fast and the Furious. I remember I was in high school when this movie came out. My sophomore year, and while I never got a chance to see it in theater, I was able to first see the movie in school. Don't ask, in truth, we several members of my class actually tricked our teacher to letting us watching it during school hours. For end of the semester calibration class period, I still laugh about how my class was able to watch the movie almost in its entirety without our teacher not really saying. By the way, she was in the adjacent office next door for most of the movie. Anyway, to be honest, I was not really super thrilled to see the film when it first came out, which is probably why I didn't rush to my nearby movie theater to see. However, after viewing it, I was quite entertained by the movie. How so? We here's why. Directed by Rob Cohen, The Fast and the Furious movie was definitely a breath of fresh air during its initial theatrical release, finding the public interest at the run of a millennium winning from the plethora sci-fi bandwagon and over from Hollywood and wanted something a little bit different. Those cons deliver on that regards, crafting a film that has plenty of street racing of fast cars and piston pumping usage of NOC, nitrous oxide throughout the entire picture. Because this movie was the first one of the series, the expectation of it has met with mixed reviews, but mostly of its fans found The Fast and the Furious to be a fun action flick that has plenty of different model cars, both domestic and foreign brands, as well as high octane entertainment, those as one can imagine. The street racing was a big highlight of the feature's likability and definitely worked to that advantage with Korn shaping the film's narrative around the underground world of racing and how deep O'Connor will go into the dubious world. Sure, it was super dramatic Shakespearean level of theatrics in both character or story, but The Fast and the Furious was surely a fun ride and delivered what was promised. While the movie has a definite age of action and racing as the bread and butter working on the feature's likability, there are some elements in the feature that don't exactly quite work. The story of the film is quite derived in nature, seeing a young reckless cop that goes underground to one of the more notorious street racer on the block. It's been done before, and some parts of the Fast and the Furious story are quite beat to beat on how its narrative progresses, including love interest, rival group, and heated pressure on all sides. There's a lot of the rating scene are actually more palpable and compelling than a lot of story narrative points. This also includes a rival group that Brian and try to face off against Johnny Tran's gang that feels undercooked whenever presents and short of wins as the movie progresses. It felt like they were a setup for something more, and but ultimately their inclusion in the narrative doesn't exactly work. Basically, they are there for some minor conflict in the first two acts of the feature and make up a final confrontation in the third act. Additionally, ending of the Fast and the Furious feels a bit wonky, leaving viewer on a story that does not have a proper conclusion, as if the film's true ending was cut for some odd reason and left with a possible one. Thankfully, we definitely overlook some of those negative points in the film's cast, which mostly gets the job done within their respective character roles. This is most prevalent in the movie's two main lead characters of Brian O'Connor and Dominic Toretto, who are played by actors Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. While Walker was mostly known for his roles in Varsity Blues as She Is All That, prior to the movie's release, it was his performance of O'Connor that made him a bit more recognizable and definitely spearheaded that franchise. Likewise, Diesel turns a great performance as the Retailer Trato and has continually propelled the F&F series forward with his involvement. Of course, the on screen chemistry of Walker and Diesel is definitely filled, and much like their character throughout the other installment, has been the backbone for most of the franchise, at least until Walker's ultimately death. The film's other side character were hit or miss, the character personas were all there and well intended in their perspective characters. But some of the acting in a few were pretty blah and a bit over the top, as well as being a derivate in character spotting rules. Maybe it's just me, but I personally felt that actor Rick Jones, Johnny Tan, has a bitch mud of overacting and felt more like cartoon with his hammy dialogue line delivery. However, actresses Machel Rodriguez and Jordana Brewster deliver horrible performances in their small capacity level as the love interest for both O'Connor and Toretto in the movie Letty and Mia. While originally intended to be a standalone feature, the success of The Fast and Furious launched a very lucrative movie franchise that spans for nearly 20 years. As of this review, with already having a total of 8 features films with 2 more planned installments in the pipeline as well as spin-off and over i.e. Hobbs and Shaw. Of course, the franchise has definitely involved beyond how it all started with 2001, The Fast and the Furious introducing new characters, new driving concepts, and ultimately changing the narrative formula for underground racing to more of Ocean 8's Avenger aspect of Tata's teams of driver racers as they help to save the world. Thus, the latter films, starting with 2011 Fast 5, the fifth installment in the series, have been criticized by some of having more of a fanciful superhero announced various elaborating local elaborate over the top action sequence and more daring goo-gigging of fight bad guys than actual racing cars. To me personally, I actually quite enjoy the latter films of the series more so than earlier one. Yes, of course, the movies has become more of the blockbuster tentpole platform where there's a sense action fantasy while watching these, a sense of cinematic display wonder of entertainment. Additionally, the F&F new direction of its movies have put a heavier focus on character, plot development, again, not the most rounded but still wholesome than just simply illegal underground street racing. In the end, 2001, The Fast and Furious did what it set out to do, providing moviegoers with a underlying action flick of fast cars, mainly badass bravado, and a fictional look at underground street racing. The movie did not really remake the action racing genre and thought it did spawn a long-lasting franchise always as several imitation style endeavors of underground racing but rather made it more relevant speaking to the new millennium age of 2000 era of moviegoers everywhere. For better or worse, it was not my personal favorite of this franchise, but it acts as a starting point to the infamous Fast and Fast saga, involving beyond its own original stepless and being one of better choices of mindless blockbuster popcorn flick for the better part of 2 decades. Fun fact, the first street race is supposedly a quarter-mile race taking approximately 10 seconds. However, the race takes almost 2 minutes of screen time and shows the vehicles driving in excess of 150 miles per hour faster than even a 1200 horsepower batting beyond can accomplish a 1/4 mile. The Fast and the Furious 2001 movie review. There cannot be many people left who don't know about the Fast and the Furious movies. And as the seventh installment of this unexpectedly long hour carries broke into the 1 billion club at last year's global box office, there's some feat building on the success of the 2001 movie that cost just 38 million and started a mix of total unknowns and rising stars. Even Vin Diesel had only just come to wide attention with 1990's Pitch Black. However, there are a few people who have not seen a Fast and Furious movie ever. I know because I was one of them until last weekend. In an effort to fill a 15 years gap in my pop culture knowledge and because I am reliably informed these movies become ridiculously entertaining joys, I grabbed the wheel and took the Fast and the Furious out of a spin, and by that I mean I played a DVD. I am depressing to realize movies from the early 2000s are starting to feel dated, feeling pangs of nostalgia with their soundtracks and synthesizer visual effect when Limp Bizkit Rolling started blaring out of my speakers within the first 5 minutes of The Fast and the Furious. I was whisked back to the early 20s quicker than a Bugatti Veyron. Based on a vibe title raised X about New York gangs that illegally race Japanese sports car late at night. FNF also behaves much like Catherine Bigelow's Point Break, released in 1991, in that it shares the basic setup of a good looking undercover cop infiltrating a criminal gang only to find himself falling under the spell of its charismatic leader. Paul Walker even has a Keanu Reeves espo vibe to him thanks to a similarly relaxed acting style. Walker placed handsome LAPD cop Brian O'Connor sent to join a neutral street racing gang led by ex-con Dominic Toretto who are hijacking electronics equipment from various trucks. Amusingly, the lure seems to be mostly DVD player. It was 2001 after all. I don't really see why the LAPD needs an expensive undercover operation to crack this open and shut case. Frankly, but let's go with it. Predictably, Brian also falls for Dominic's sister Mia, Jordana Brewster, and begins to feel his loyalty splitting as the team is undercover with exhibit more camaraderie than anything he gets from his boring middle-aged police superiors, one played by Ten Levine. I know these movies evolve into something a great deal crazier, so was surprised by how low scale but efficient Rob Cohen's original is, a director best known at the time for Dragon the Bruce Lee story 1993 and Dragonheart 1996, whose later helmed The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor before his career imploded thanks to an unhealthy obsession with dragons he never recovered from. Stealth, the ridiculously movie about the artificially intelligent plan. There's definitely something here, but not greatness. It feels like a film you had been disappointed with at the cinema, but might see things differently after a casual DVD rental with low expectations. Walker and Diesel are what make it work to the extent it looks, as they have a nice chemistry together, even if the script fails to capitalize on the tragedy of their friendship being built on a lie. While Dominic eventually realizes Brian's a cop, it lands with almost no weight in the middle of a phone call in the desert. FNF action sequences are tamed by today's high standard of anything goes digital meme, but the racing shots are more kinetic and CG filled than was typical of the era. There's a fun POV shot of the camera being sucked around a muscle car engine and a few ahead of its time sequence where the camera defies logistics by traveling inside an outside car tearing down a crushingly empty street. A shot perfect by Spielberg's War of the Worlds remake during a freeway escape. Such moments may not be such convincing and photorealistic as we are used to seeing today, but they are shot with the right amount of aggressiveness to make you see past their flaws. And for some, the fact this movie is more drawn to earth and contain greatness facility will be more appealing. Mick Rogers deserves credit for his stunt coordinating and second unit directing. Overall, while not a disaster and with its share of entertaining scene, The Fast and the Furious feels like a decent but cheap knockoff of several other movies that came before. Hung around a fun context of street races with neon muscle cars guzzling matrix oxide, it's bewildering to know his Spawn 6 sequel and counting, with the seventh becoming one of the highest grossing movie ever made. Crew and director. The movie is directed by Rob Cohen and writer goes to Gary Scott Thompson, Eric Berquist, and David Ayer. Story by Gary Scott Thompson. The movie starring Vin Diesel and Paul Walker in the main cast. The Fast and the Furious 2001. The Fast and the Furious is at the very least an intriguing franchise, for it gives gearheads the kind of inspiration and fancy they need to have to keep sane. I have always found car hobbyists to face quite the paradox. The problem with car is that they are grossly expensive, so if you are a middle class man having to in quite the luxury, however, if you are deep into cars as a fascination, you presumably not only want one or more or two cars, you want several and you want them customized and rigged to your liking. Customizing and optimizing the performance on one car is gruesomely expensive, but having a garage of half a dozen or more customized optimized vehicle could cost as much as your house and your neighbor house put together. This is why each and every day I am more and more satisfied with my lack of interest in cars and my own obsession with the Honda Accord I drive. The Fast and the Furious also gives overheads the kind of underlying crush and visualization of their dreams realized because they themselves often don't have the means, the vehicle, nor the kind of close range courses to carry out the kind of eye popping stunts and mayhem the character in these films cost. It caters to that level of unbridled excitement, and you are actually racing in a vehicle at that moment where you get the indecibel bang in your chest, reminding you know that you are alive. I was fully ready to embrace this franchise for its fantastical element, but unsure if I could still be entertained watching our car chases and death-defying stunt for an upward or 2 hours. What's pleasant about The Fast and the Furious is that it focuses on the relationships the characters have with one another in the mindset of all the racing. The film's slender plot revolves around Brian O'Connor, an undercover Los Angeles police officer sent to infiltrate a ring of truck hijacking and street racers in the heart of Los Angeles. Led by Dominic Toretto, Asab knew it all when it comes to vehicles. The gang is known for their heavily armed carjacking activities of a large 18-wheeler. In addition to their work at auto body shops, they were modify and customize cars. Some are with flirting with and other unabashedly breaking the laws of what is street legal. Also working in Dominic's crew are Latricia Ortiz, played by Mitchell Rodriguez, his longtime girlfriend and mechanic at his job. In addition to his sister Mia Tretto, played by Jordana Brewster, who became the apple of Brian's eye late in the film. Brian's infatuation of Dom Rising soon becomes corrupted by his fascination with the culture Dom and his crew have cheated. It's a culture that specializes in prompting and maintaining a long-term underlying crush in the most unique and heart-pounding ways. Despite Brand's responsibility to uphold the law through all this, he finds his involvement with Dom going above and beyond the call of the law. As far as hooking up with Dom's sister and helping Dom pull out a crackdown of former partners that have turned into rival gang members following a arranged agreement. No matter which way you sliced it, The Fast and the Furious is slight in substance but often very strong on a level of entertainment. At only 100 minutes, it pleasingly sketched by without being too much of an assault on the sense and operates largely on the charm and infectious personalities of its actors. Walker is the standout of the crowd, maintaining a certain level of cool and street smarts, and his character never hitting the level of cocksure confidence, making him a more watchable and likable presence. That's not to undermine Diesel's role here, because without him, this film would not be as much of the promise as it already is. From the first rate, it is clear that Walker and Diesel have enough chemistry to create a bond between two opposite characters in terms of life paths in order to go on many more adventures with one another. The supporting cast of Rodriguez and Brewster are fine, though even in more muscaline rule, the two feel like nothing more than a decorative piece of eye candy that help further the plot along with convenient. But perhaps such was just destined to be the case in The Fast and the Furious, a film where escapist tendencies take over and nothing else matters beside the movement. When your car begins to redline or a part become misplaced in Dom's garage of odds and ends, being that this film largely predicates itself on mole bonding and the thrill of racing for both an illegal and underlying charged eagle. The Fast and the Furious largely possesses a homogeneity that makes it believable and grounded in reality, despite a certain conclusion with a certain train that I confess was still entertaining in a realm of cinematic incredulity. This is a fun and effective film in being every gearhead fancy and being a damn fine piece of entertainment. Unfortunately, we could not find any streaming offers. The Fast and the Furious movie 2001 film. The movie is directed by Rob Cohen and the story by Gary Scott, music by BT, edited by Peter Hornis, cinematography by Erickson Core, production company is Universal Pictures and distributed by Universal Picture, running time 106 minutes and budget is $38 million and the box office is $207 million. Fast One redirectors for the 2000 song See Unrange for the cycling race, see Pankis Bay Fast One. So, The Fast and the Furious is a 2001 crime action adventure film directed by Rob Cohen and written by Gary Scott Thompson and David Ayer. It is the first installment in the Fast and Furious franchise and stars Paul Walker as Vin Diesel, Michael Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, Rick Yune, Chad Lindbergh, Johnny Strong, Ted Levine, and Matt Scholes. The Fast and the Furious follows Brian O'Connor, Walker, an underground cop tasked with discovering the identities of a group of unknown automobile hijackers led by Dominic Toretto. Development for The Fast and the Furious across after Cohen read a Vibe magazine article in 1998 article Racer X, which details the illegal street racing circuit operating within New York City. After contacting producer Neil H. Mortis, Mortis was able to present the script to Universal Studios, who greenlit The Fast and the Furious in 2000. Walker was the director actor to sign into the project, while Diesel initially had to be persuaded to participate in the film, expecting after proposal several script changes. Principal photography began in Los Angeles in July 2000, with the majority of filming being done on location in Los Angeles and Southern California, which ended in October 2000. The Fast and the Furious was released in the United States on June 22, 2001. The film was a commercial success, grossing over $200 million worldwide. It received mixed reviews with praise for Walker and Diesel performance and the action sequence, but criticism of parts of the storyline, including the ending. It was later re-released on June 2, 2016 to commemorate the film's 15th anniversary. The Fast and the Furious soon launched a media franchise and a series of sequels starting with Too Fast, Too Furious in 2003. The plot of the movie is that on the deserted highway, a heist crew driving three modified Honda Civics assault a truck carrying electronic goods, steal its cargo, and escapes into the night. The following day, a joint Los Angeles Police Department (LAPD) and FBI task force sends LAPD officer Brian O'Connor undercover to locate the crew. He begins his investigation at Tattoo Market, ordering his regular tuna on white, no crust, and flirting with its owner Mia, sister of infamous street racer Dominic Toretto. While Dominic ostensibly sits in the back office reading a newspaper, Dominic's crew Vince, Leon, Jesse, and his girlfriend Letty arrives. Vince, who has a crush on Mia, starts a fight with Brian until Dominic intervenes. That night, Brian brings a modified 1995 Mitsubishi Escalade to an illegal street race, hoping to find a lead on the heist crew. Dominic arrives in his Mazda RX-7 and initiates a drag race between himself, Brian, and two other drivers. Lacking funds, Brian is forced to wager his cars. Dominic wins the race after O'Connor's car malfunction. But the LAPD arrive before he can hand over his vehicle. Brian in his car helps Dominic escape, but they accidentally venture into the territory of Dominic's old racing rival. Gang leader Johnny Tan and his cousin Lance Noggins, who destroy band vehicle, later Dominic reiterate that Brian still owes him a 10-second car. The two then walk back to Dominic's house together, where an altercation between Vince, now who is upset that Brian is at the house, and Dominic breaks out. Brian brings a damaged 1994 Toyota Supra to Dominic's garage as a replacement. Dominic and his crew begin the long process of restoring the vehicle, and Brian starts dating Mia. He also begins investigation, trying convinced that he is the mastermind behind the truck hijacking. While investigating one garage at night, Brian is discovered by Dominic and Vince, who demand an explanation. Brian convinces them that he is researching his opponent's vehicle for the upcoming desert race wars. Together, the two investigate Trent's garage, discovering a large quantity of electronic goods. Brian reports the discovery to his superior, and Tran and Lentz are arrested. The raid falls, however, when the electronics are proved to have been purchased legally. Brian is forced to confront his suspicion that Dominic is the true mastermind. Brian is given 36 hours to find the heist crew, as the truckers are now arming themselves to defend against the hijacking. The following day, Dominic and Brian attend race wars. There, Jesse regards his father's Volkswagen Jetta against Tran and his Honda 2000S, but flees with the car after he loses. Tran demands Dominic recover the vehicle and accuses him for reporting him to the police. In fact, Dominic beat up Tran. Later that night, Brian witnessed Dominic and his crew leaving and realizes that they are the hijackers. He reveals his true identity to Mia and convinces her to help him find the crew. Dominic, Letty, Vince, and Leon attack a semi-trailer truck intending to be their final heist. The armed driver shoots Vince and runs Letty off the road. Brian arrives with Mia and rescues Vince. He is forced to reveal his identity to call in emergency medical care to save him. Dominic, Mia, and the rest of the crew leave before the authorities can arrive. Sometime later, Brian arrives at Dominic's house to apprehend him as he is reversing his father's 1970 Dodge Charger RT out of the garage. Jesse arrives pleading for protection. Train and Lynch ride by a motorbike and shoot Jesse for renting on their bit. Brian and Dominic give chase in their separate vehicle, finding and killing Train and Lynch. Brian then pursues Dominic, with them both eventually escaping to a quarter-mile track race. The pair barely cross a railroad before a train passes, which ends the race in a draw. But Dominic crashes his car into a truck. Brian gives the key to his own car to Dominic, asserting that he still owns his car. Dominic escapes in the Supra as Brian walks away. In the post-credit scene, Dominic is seen driving through Baja California, Mexico in a 1970 Convertible Secord SS. Paul Walker in the movie as Brian O'Connor, an LAPD officer sent undercover to infiltrate a crew of hijackers, Mia's love interest. Vin Diesel as Dominic Toretto, leader of the heist crew and a professional street racer. He was banned from professional racing after a violent retaliatory attack on the man who accidentally killed Dominic's father. Michael Rodriguez at Letty Ortiz, a member of Dominic crew and his girlfriend. Jordana Brewster as Mia Toretto, Dominic's sister and owner of the Toretto General Store, Brian's love interest. Rick Yune as Johnny Tran, a Vietnamese gang leader and rival of Dominic. Chad Lebregar as Jesse, a member of Dominic crew, highly intelligent with math, algebra, and in computing, but he suffers from attention deficit disorder. John Strong as Leon, a member of Dominic crew. Matt Stews as Vince, a member of Dominic crew, and his childhood friend. He harbor an unrequited love for Mia. The central cast is rounded out by Ted Levin and Tom Barry as Turner and Wilkins respectively. Member of the team that organized the investigation to place Brian undercover, Noel Guglielmini appears as Hector, the organizer of the drag race, musician and rapper J. A. Rule and cartoon R.J. Devra also act as Edwin and Danny, fellow driver at the drag race who race against Dominic and Brian. Vito Roggins plays Harry, an informant and owner of the Racer's Edge. Rogeli portrays Lance Nigun, Train's cousin and right-hand man. Neil H. Mortis and Rob Cohen both appeared in cameos. Neil plays an unnamed driver of the Black Ferrari F355 convertible who is given a challenge by Brian while Rob plays a pizza delivery man. Production and development. Director Rob Cohen was inspired to make this film after reading a 1998 Vibe magazine article called Racer X about street racing in New York City and watching an actual illegal street racing at night in Los Angeles. The film's original title was redlined before it was changed to The Fast and the Furious. Roger Corman licensed the title right of this 1995 film The Fast and the Furious to Universal so that the title could be used on the project. Both films were about racing. Producer Neej Atmotis, who had previously worked with Paul Walker on the film The Skulls 2000, gave the actor a script and offered him the role of Brian O'Connor. Originally, the studio told the producers that they would greenlight the film if they could get Timothy Olyphant to play the role of Dominic Toretto. Olyphant, however, who had started in the previous year's car-themed blockbuster Gone in 60 Seconds, declined the role. Mortis instead suggested Diesel, who had to be convinced to take the role, even though he had only played supporting role up to the point. Filming. The film was shot in various locations within Los Angeles and parts of the southern California. From July to October 2000, key locations include Rogers Stadium on the opening scene where Brian tests his escapes on the parking lot, Angelino Heist, Silver Lake and Eco Park, the neighborhood around Trato's home, as well as Little Saigon where train destroyed the escape, and the San Bernardino International Airport, the venue for race wars, which attracted over 1,500 import car owners and enthusiasts. The entire last rig high scenes was filmed along Domingo Parkway on the southern side of San Vicente Hamid in the San Vicente Valley near Diamond Valley Lake. Prior to filming, both Jordana Brewster and Michael Rodriguez did not have driver lessons, so they took driving lessons during production. For the climatic race scenes between Brian and Toretto, separate shots of both cars crossing the railroad and the train crossing the street was filmed, then composite together to give the illusion of the train nearly missing the cars. A long street road was used as a ramp for Toretto's cars to crash through the semi-truck and fly in mid-air. An alternate ending title, More Than Furious, was filmed in which Tanner dropped Brian off at the Toretto home where they encounter Mia packing. Intending to move away, Brian reveals that he resigned from the LAPD who let him go quietly, and that he wants another chance with her when Mia tells him that it's not going to be that simple. Brian tells her that he's got time. The ending was released in the collection bundle DVD version. During the filming of the movie, 78 cars were wrecked both on and off screen. Out of the 78 cars, these cars were shown being destroyed in the film's trailer alone. The music is goes to the Fast and the Furious soundtrack, and more Fast and Furious. The film's score was composed by music producer BT, mixing Laurent Cobb with hip hop and industrial influence. Two soundtracks were released for the film. The first one featured mostly hip hop and rap music. The second one, titled More Fast and Furious, featured alternative metal, post-grunge, and non-metal songs, always a select track from Beat Score. The box office of the movie. The Fast and the Furious was released on June 22, 2001 in North America and ranked 1 at the box office, earning 40 during its opening weekend. Its widest released was the 2,889 theater during its run. The film was made a domestic total of 142 along with an international total of 62, being its worldwide total of $207 million on a budget of $38 million. The Fast and the Furious was released on DVD on January 2, 2002. More than 5.5 units were sold by April 2002. A second DVD entitled The Tricked Out Edition, released on June 3, 2003, featured the turbocharged prelude for Too Fast, Too Furious, a short film that set the tone to the film's sequel. An abridged version of the short film is also on the sequel DVD release. Critical response. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film receives a rating of 53% based on review from 147 critics and an average score of 5.4 out of 10. The critical consequences reads sleek and shiny on the surface. The Fast and the Furious recalls to the cheesy teenage exploration flick of the 1950. On Metacritic, the film has score of 58 out of 100 based on reviews from 29 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audience served by Cinema Score gave the film a grade B plus on the scale from A to F. Todd McCarthy of Variety called the film a gritty and gratifying cheap thrill. Rob Cohen's high-octane hot car Miller is a true rarity these days, a really good exploration, the sort of thing that would rule a tribe if they still existed. Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times called it an action picture that's surprising in the complexity of its keys, character, and potential of tragedy. Vin Diesel portrayal of Dominic Toretto won praises, with Race Pendleton of the Chicago Reader writing that Diesel carries the movie with his unsettling mix of zen-like tranquility and barely control rake. Other reviews were more mixed. Susan Valenza of USA Today gave the film two template fares out of 4 stars, saying that cons at least know how to keep matters moving and the action sequence exciting. Maybe I have grown nostalgic and soft after all these years, but the trashy sheen and mock-up posturing of the original The Fast and the Furious does not seem so bad 20 years later. In fact, this blatant rip-off of Point Break 1991, which plays nearly identically to Catherine Biegel's action classic for the first third of the film, holds up pretty decently. Not to say that director Rob Cohen in some kind of poor man's Mitchell Bay, he doesn't have Bay astounding visual style to compensate of the sleaze, but his racing action flick does have its charm, not least of which is the star power of Vin Diesel. As the follow-up to the Begone turns in the sci-fi movie throwback Pitch Black 2000, Vin Diesel plays Dominic Toretto, iconic street race and probably the definitely the highest mastermind that the late Paul Walker suffered doofus undercover cop Brian O'Connor is investigating. As in Pitch Black, Diesel plays into the contradiction of his psyche and demeanor. His just called body and rumbling bass voice makes him appear to be a classic action movie heavy with we fast see him he is obscured by a fortified cage in the back of his bodega going about his mysterious business as workers Brian flirt with his sister Mia Jordana Brewster. His intimidating and mysterious conspiracies about a distant camera makes it clear that everything in this world resolves around him right from the get-go. But as Brian meets Tom and gets in with his crew, Diesel performance doesn't match the typical gender approach. He conveys an aloof intelligence and charisma beyond his intimidating looks. He will drop a one-liner or movement of sentimentalism that will catch you off guard, such as his heartfelt speech about losing his dad and assaulting the man who accidentally killed him. But there's nothing Viking or canonical in the way he plays these moments. He appears authentic, heartfelt, and most importantly, guarding in the way he plays by emotional arc, which is distinct from the approach of contemporary equivalent like Idris Silva or Diane Jensen, who would join the series in later entries. Perhaps it's inevitable that the Fast and Furious series would eventually turn into a goofy ode to family because Diesel channels such loyal warmth at the series lead. Diesel and to a lesser extent Walker, who cannot act for shit out, does have affable bimbo energy, provide the film with its charm, while the muscular filmmaking for Cohen and the impressive stunt work does the rest. The Fast and the Furious is packed with street races throughout its entire runtime, and most of them are fairly exciting as far as racing scenes go. True, Cohen does shake the camera too much to approximate velocity and pack the film full of grish CGI shots of NOC, nitrous oxide system, tanks activating and blasting the cars off at incredible speeds, but the sheer speed of the races and their variety thought the film provide momentum and escalation. The races makes you understand why the film was a huge hit at the box office, spawned a long-running franchise and sparked a pop culture obsession with street racing and NOC. The nearly race when Brian is almost beats Tom and integrates himself to Dom's crew captures Walker likable energy and helps you to appreciate the excitement of street racing, both through the filmmaking and by experiencing the race victoriously through Walker. After the race, Walker's delivery of the line, "Dude, I almost had you." Through his big goofy smile is the earnest encapsulation of the juiciest race the film has for racing. The climax in the desert where Brian has to save Dom and his crew from the armed driver they are trying to rig off is also thrilling. A dusty, high-stakes showdown featuring skilled stunt driving and plenty of EV-started cars. The practical nature of the sequence with real cars and real stunt driver is all the more exciting in retrospect when placed against the stakes-free extravagances of modern Hollywood, of which the later entries in the series are prime example. So maybe it is just nostalgia after all that makes the Fast and the Furious work so well. 2 decades later, the physicality and weight of the fictional action scenes and the atheism of a pre 9/11 Hollywood feels like a respite after the deadening weightless and incoherences of contemporary CGI spectacle, or maybe an action film based on enigmatic charisma of Van Diesel and goofy likability of Paul Walker simply works. Regardless of the shifts in action filmmaking over the years, whatever the case, there's an argument to be made for the film's worth, even apart from the mammoth franchise that is spawned. 6 out of 10, The Fast and the Furious 2001. The Fast and the Furious movie starring Vin Diesel and Paul Walker 10 best quotes. It has been nearly 25 years since the Fast and the Furious franchise first began, and while the series has grown to incredible heights in the years since, the Fast and the Furious course after a reminder of the fun and charm of the movie that started in all. 2001, The Fast and the Furious gave the franchise a more toned down beginning while also introducing some of the most beloved characters of the franchise like Drom. Brian and Letty. Apart from the colorful car and exciting racing sequence, another thing that makes the Rob Cohen project such as a memorable installment is the dialogue. There are a lot of a tough and intimidating line thrown around by his crew of likable criminal. Fans also get to hear quotes that establish key themes that are still a part of the franchise decades later, as well as lines that offer a glimpse of Tom's perspective on the world. Ask any risker, any real racer, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning is winning. The over the top action sequences of the Fast and Furious movies are a lot of fun, but it is a shame that they have moved so far away from the street racing origin of the franchise. It is an exciting world to be introduced into, and Brian serves as an audience surrogate character and he enters into the community and learns its rules. During his first race with Dom, Brad suggests that he came close to winning, but Dom gives him his lesson. He is likely that Dom has never really had his victorious called into question, but his outlook on a race is very simple and clear cut. One racer crosses the finish line first and nothing else matters. It speaks to the nice simplicity of the sport while also suggesting that it's part of the appeal that Tom sees in it. He likes things to be uncomplicated, and the idea that a win is in a win means that there is no other argument to make. You almost had me, you never had me, you never had your car. Thus, Brian loses his first race against Tom while also destroying his car. It's clear that he is immediately hooked on racing. He even takes the race as a small victory as he cheerfully boasts that he always had Dom beat. However, Dom proves that he is a much more seasoned driver as he suggests that Brian was never even in control of his car. The first race sets up a recurring dynamic between Dom and Brian throughout the franchise and the question of which character in the better racer. It helps to establish the brotherly bond these two have, as Brian is like the younger brother chasing the older one and trying to prove he is faster. This moment also helps to establish the friendship between Brian and Dom, as Dom is mostly amused by Brian's assertion, I owe you a 10-second car. As part of their bet for their first race, Brian promises Dom a 10-second car if he loses. While he does lose, Brian's car is hardly in good working order when he delivers it to Dom. This helps to further strengthen their relationship, and the two men begin working together to make the car into something Brian promised him. It is a subtle moment of Brian keeping a promise to Dom and hinting at his growing loyalty. Indeed, at the end of the movie, Brian is put in a position of arresting Dom or letting him go. He chooses the latter, handing over the keys to him, Oman car, explaining that it is what he owes to Dom. It is the moment that solidified the brotherhood between the two iconic characters. Brian is willing to give up his career and possibly put himself into trouble because he feels so thought he owes his girlfriend. You can have any brew you want as long as it's a Corona. After Brian helps Tom evade arrest, he is formally introduced to the crew as Tom takes him to a house party they are throwing. As they enter into the party, Tom offers him a beer but insists that it has to be Corona. The moment is an obvious bit of product placement in the movie, which can offer be a turn off for audience. However, the Fast and the Furious gets away with it because of how much it becomes ingrained in the franchise. Dom's love of Corona and intolerance for anything else in the fun recurring gag in the movie, where Mr. Nobody offered Dom come up with his own special craft beer in Furious 7. Dom insists he will stick with Corona. While it is a silly detail to have, it can also be seen as comment on how important loyalty is to Dom, even if it is about a brand of beer. On green, I am going for it. The moment Tom realized that Brian is a cop, shatters the friendship they had been building. However, while Tom is a dangerous man to his enemies, he still cannot see Brian as one. After they team up to take down Johnny Trent, Tom decided that the two men are going to settle this situation the same way that they first formed their bond in a race. With each man in their own car, Dom sits at the stoplight with Brian beside him and he lets him know that when the light turns green, he is going and Brian can just try to catch him while Dom could easily have just run right away. It seems that he knows there is a possibility that he is going to prison and decided to go out doing what he loves. On the other hand, it says a lot that Brian is willing to handle things on Dom's terms. You break her heart, I'll break your neck. Brian and Mia have one of the best relationships in the Fast and Furious franchise, and the best movie in their international romance begins to blossom. Brian falls for Mia as soon as he befriends Tom. Of course, Tom is an intimidating guy to have around when Brian is dating his sister, and despite their friendship growing strong, Dom offers a stern warning that ensures Brian he does not want to mess this up. There's no doubt that Dom means what he says because at this particular moment, Mia is the only blood relative he has. His relationship with her has always been a deep one too. She supports him and tries her best to be a part of the life he has chosen. Even though she is generally laid back, in future installments she is seen revealing her secrets to Dom before she does to Brian. Why don't you guys pack it up before I leave thread marks on your face? Letty. As much as the first movie is more focused on Brian and Mia romance, the relationship between Dom and Letty has become the heart of the Fast saga in many ways. Though Dom initially seems like a man not overly eager to settle down, Letty has the kind of thickness that can handle him. In the early stages of the movie, Letty arrives at the nighttime racing event and spots two women flirting with Dom without hesitating. She lets them know that it would be in their best interest to walk away. Dom is just as impressed as the viewers when he sees Letty warning them off since he understands that she is doing it out of love. She is not just making an empty threat either. Throughout the franchise, Letty has proven herself to be one of the most impressive writers out of all of the heroes. The only thing that pulled me in is you being friends with your brother is just a bonus. With Brian no longer featured in the Fast saga due to Paul Walker's tragic death, it is a shame that audience no longer get to see the relationship between Brian and Mia unfold over the movies. The first movie sets up their romance, which comes unexpectedly and compromises Brian's undercover mission. While alone with Brian, Mia goes on to praise Tom, claiming that everyone is always pulled to him. Brian disagrees, arguing that it is not Tom who attached him to crew but her. Brian is not being truthful because what actually pulled him is his desire to take down the crew. However, as for what made him change his mind, that's his love for Mia. If she was not in the picture, he probably would have gone ahead and finished the job instead of warning Mia that the police were after Tom. I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Nothing else matters, not the mortgage, not the store. As much as there are a lot of fun qualities to the Fast and Furious movie, it is likely that the franchise would never have become what it was had it not been for the character of Dominic Toretto. As audiences are introduced to the world of street racing, Dom's passion and dedication to the world enhance the story. Dom has a heart to heart conversation with Brian in the garage where he explains his life principles. He states that driving is all that matters to him. With every quarter mile he covers on the road, he forgets all the problem. Dom does indeed have plenty of retributions to deal with. He is short on cash, and that's why he keeps conducting heists on trucks. Additionally, he has plenty of enemies, thief among them, Johnny Tran. However, none of that bothers him so long as he is able to step on the gas each day. He is happy. It's such a philosophy that makes him one of the best movie delivers of all time. If you want time, buy the magazine. Given the height that the Fast saga has grown to over the years, it is easy to forget that the movies first started with that was essentially a knockoff of Point Break. The undercover cop storyline with Brian might not be original, but it does make for some great movie cop moments. Such as this moment, the FBI agent Bilkins soon starts pestering Brian for talking too long to take down the Toretto crew. Brian insists he needs time to break. Belkin's secretary advised him to buy Time magazine if he needs time. Belkin is right to pester Brian because the sooner the job gets done, the better it will be for everyone. A part of him also suspects that Brian is stalling. Since Brian has fallen in love with Mia, he is having doubt about participating in the arrest of Tom and his crew. The Fast Saga has also been able to lean into cheesy jokes like this, and it works partially because of how earnestly it is delivered. Spirit, thank you for your providing us with jackpot nitrous injection and 4-core intercooler. Thank you. One of the scoring idea in the Fast Saga is seeing these tough criminals gathering together and saying grace at their traditional family dinner. These moments highlight the sense of togetherness and family those characters share. Interestingly, looking back at the first movie, there are some key members of the Fast family who are no longer around in the franchise, including Jesse. The young members of Tom crew is somewhat awkward as he struggles through his turn to say grace at the table. However, his unique take on the blessing showcases the shared interest that brought these people together and helped to make them so close to one another. It really solidified them as a atypical family with their own value but also highlight the love that is always at the center of these movies. Brian Earl Saplinger sounds like a serial killer name is what you are. The first ever conversation Dom has with Brian happens when he stops a fight between the undercover cops and wins. Dom checks his lessons to see who he really is, and when he reads his name, he goes on to throw shade at him. Obviously, Brian's superiors didn't give him the best sounding undercover name, but it works because Dom dismisses him as nothing but a troublemaker. Dom is usually the stern and stoic leader of the crew, but the first movie allows him to loosen up a little more, which is fun to see compared to where the character goes later in the franchise. It is rare to see him crack jokes like this in the other movies, but seeing him teasing Brian helps to establish the brotherly bond they gave in the movie, and that is first commitment in the Fast and the Furious. You want a piece of a go to Hollywood Boulevard, you want an underline dash that will be too large. While Letty goes on to have a much more significant role in the later movies, The Fast and the Furious helps to establish her as one of the standout characters in the stories. It is not hard to see why she was brought back into the fold as Letty in a charming love interest for Dom, but she is allowed to be her own strong and independent woman. This is shown at the race wars when a man tries to flirt with her only for Letty to quickly shut him down and make it known that she belongs in the race as much as anyone else there. The line perfectly sums up the no nonsense style of Letty and her demand to be taken seriously in this male dominated world. The delivery from Michael Rodriguez also makes Letty even more likable. Instead of sounding as if she is angry or insulted by the man, Letty simply sounds bored because he is clearly not worth her time. Even the cop in Hollywood are Hollywood. Brian Rule in the first movie sees him jumping back and forth between the criminal world and the police world as he deals with his undercover assignment. A subtle yet effective detail in this is the definite way in which both worlds are depicted. Dom and his crew live a subdued and modest life as modern outlaws, while the police headquarters is set up in a lavish Hollywood mansion. Without realizing it, the audience takes side with the more down to earth criminal. When Brand sees the extravagance of the police base of operation, he comments on it in a somewhat dismissive and unapproving way. This is another small detail that shows where Brian is more comfortable. Over the course of the Fast and Furious. It becomes clear that Brian is pulled toward to lifestyle of Tom and the other more than this police officer path. It's not how you stand by your car, it's how you race your car. The Fast Saga has a long tradition of bringing its rappers and musical artists to play a role in the movies. Before the likes of Cardi B and Ludacris joined the franchise, Ja Rule was the first rapper turned actor to get a role in the franchise, as Racer Edwin is one of the movie's first racing sequences. Not only does he set up a fun trend that continues in the franchise, but he also suffers some sound advice to Brian as he prepared for the first race. Brian runs the risk of coming off as a poser in the world, and Edwin seems to pick up on the fact that he is new to the game. Though Edwin is not a big character in the movie and even gets humiliated in the fast race, his words to Brian echo the kind of philosophy that Dom has with racing. In the community of outlaws, nothing speaks louder and gains more respect than skills behind the wheels. Fast and Furious 1 alternate ending explain. The first installment of the Fast and Furious franchise has an alternate ending that many fans never know existed. The Fast saga launched in 2001 with The Fast and the Furious, a film directed by Rob Cohen. The action-packed movie introduced the world to Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor, characters played by Vin Diesel and Paul Walker respectively. The franchise launching movie's alternate ending was never used, however, viewed respectively, it set the tone for the future of the franchise. When the Fast and the Furious film series grows more popular, Dom and Brian were more like brothers bonded by their past. There was an immense amount of loyalty between the two men, but their relationship didn't start out that way. Brian met Dom while working as an undercover cop investigating a series of truck hijacking. He infiltrated the street racing scene as well as Dom's crew before learning the truth about the crimes. Following the first movie, Brian ended up leaving his old life behind and teamed up with Dom and their allies in taking down drug lords, terrorists, and other global threats. By the end of The Fast and the Furious, Brian came to realize that Dom was behind the hijackings. He intended to apprehend his new friend before members of the rival crew member. One of Dom's closest friends, Dom and Brian pursued the killers, but the latter still had his sights set on an official arrest. They wound up embarking on a street race, which included with Dom wrecking his car. Brian then gave Dom the keys and allowed him to escape as Brian walked away from the totaled car. Dom did flee the area since the post-credit scene featured him driving his 1970 Corvette Canva in the Baja California. An alternate version of the ending played out much differently by hinting at Brian's fate with the Toretto family. A breakdown of the Fast and the Furious alternate ending. The alternate ending, known as More Than Furious, was introduced in the franchise DVD collection and other select bundle. It followed Brian after the incident with Dom and revealed that he was dropped off at the Toretto's house by Sergeant Tanner. He found Mia Toretto, Dom's younger sister, packing up her things with the hope of moving away. Brian shared that he resigned from the LAPD and wanted another chance at their relationship. She interjected that it will not be that simple between the two, but he added that he now had plenty of time to work it out. The short scene provided insight into Brian Fate much earlier in the franchise since in Too Fast, Too Furious, his character fled from Los Angeles to Miami to avoid persecution for letting Dom escape. It also set the tone for Brian's willingness to help the Trato family even if it meant breaking the law. He clearly held onto the connection with Mia even before they officially got back together down the line in the Fast and Furious franchise. It's likely that the movie went with the other version since it concluded with more of a cliffhanger in regards to Dom and Brian's relationship. Fast and the Furious movies' alternate ending would have unpended the franchise. Back in 2001, The Fast and the Furious, but Vin Diesel and Paul Walker on the map like never before. And Paul Walker on the map like never before with the street racing action flick director Rob Cohen likely didn't know he was about to launch one of the biggest film franchises of the 21st century. More even that, there's a nowhere that Walker or Diesel had any clue themselves, and yet with 9 sequel spin-off and a children animated series, the Fast and Furious franchise has grown well beyond expectation, but did you know that the original film could have ended a bit differently? Had Cohen and a company stuck with this alternate ending, it may have changed the franchise drastically moving forward. How did The Fast and the Furious almost end? In the deleted ending to The Fast and the Furious title Moving Out, Brian O'Connor Walker is let go by the Los Angeles Police Department, who for some reason opt not to press charges against their turncoat officer. But instead of going home and figuring out his next move, Brian is shuttled to the Toretto house where he finds Mia packing things up in the garage. He cannot help but ask if she knows where Dom is. The subject quickly changes to their relationship because of Brian's betrayal. Any genuine feeling Mia felt for the guy are meddled and she is unsure if she can trust him again. Of course, Brian fights for her anyway, and the scene ends with a hopeful finish that alludes to a future reconciliation after everything they had been through, and Brian's willingness to help Dom despite his duties as a cop. It makes sense that Mia would consider taking him back even after such a big lie. Also, Brian offers to help her with packing up the place but then stands idle by as the camera pans over to the Los Angeles skyline, which is both strange and amusing. Where the two of them would have gone after this is uncertain, but this ending would have no doubt made Too Fast, Too Furious a different movie entirely. Maybe that would have been a good thing. As The Fast and the Furious stands, the original film actually ends with Brian handing Dom the keys to his Sopra after nearly deciding to arrest him. The pair come to a mutual understanding and the street racing gets away without another word. A post-credit scene reveals that Dom got away having fled to Mexico, but we don't hear from Brian or Mia again this time around. In fact, Mia is not seen again until the fourth movie, Fast and Furious, which is also the next picture in the series to reunite Brian and Dom, who both appeared independently during the third and fourth movies. Brian and Mia being together could have shifted the franchise. Ending The Fast and the Furious with Brian and Mia together could have likely shifted the franchise in an entirely new direction. For starters, Too Fast, Too Furious takes Brian to Miami where he makes his living as a street racer before being described by the FBI to take down a drug lord named Carter Veron, played by Yellowstone very own Cole Hauser. The sequel, the only one not to feature Vin Diesel in any capacity, ended up introducing recurring character to the franchise, and while it's currently the weakest link in the series, it has proven important in the meantime. But had the LAPD just let Brian go, none of it would have happened. This would mean that characters like Roman Pites, Terry Gibson, and Tage Parker, like Chris Ludacris Bridges, may never have existed in Fast and Furious, which would have been a serious change to the franchise dynamic. Given that Gibson and Bridges have appeared in all but three installments in the Fast saga, it would be strange to imagine the series without them. Additionally, the consequences of Brian betrayal are meant to be serious, and by removing them, nothing is driven the former LAPD officer exploit in the sequel. The franchise already has a major issue with the serious lack of consequences, namely dead characters who will not stay dead, so forgetting about Brian's action there early in the saga will not bode well for the immediate sequel. In contrast to what we see in this deleted alternate ending, the turbocharged prelude to Too Fast and Too Furious explain what happened to Brian after letting Dom go and before setting on the opposite coast.
On the run from the police, he travels across the country, seemingly forgetting about Mia entirely as he is welcomed by Miami guards upon riding into town. While the alternate ending may have been more emotionally satisfying, it's less realistic and would have seriously changed the way the Fast saga played out. Brian and Mia get their happy Fast and Furious ending. Any longtime Fast and Furious fan will know that eventually Brian and Mia go get their happy ending after being reunited in the fourth film. The pair eventually rekindle their relationship by Fast 5, arguably the best of the Fast Saga sequel. Mia is pregnant with their firstborn son, Jack, and by Fast and Furious 6, they are essentially retired from their life of crime. Naturally, that doesn't quite stick, and they continue to be involved in all of the Dom scheme. In Furious 7, they are expecting another child, though Brian misses the bullets. Thankfully, by the end of the seventh film, Brian recognizes his need to be there for his family and he officially retires from life, sticking things out with Mia, Jack, and their new child. While Braun has yet to officially return to the franchise due to the death of actor Paul Walker in 2013, he has been referenced several times and has even reappeared in flashbacks as being the only one in charge of keeping the Stratos cruise children all safe while missions are afoot. Mia returned in both F9 and Fast X to help Tom and their makeshift family against Jacob Trento and Dante Rice, but Brian has kept out of the public eye since his retirement. While many fans anxiously await more news on Brian's fate with the upcoming 11th and final installment, we know that at the very least he and Mia found happiness together in the end. The alternate ending to The Fast and Furious might not have been included in the final product, but the results can be seen throughout the Fast saga. The Fast and the Furious is available to rent on Prime Video in the US. Fast and Furious Letty Ortiz death and surprise return explain. Letty Ortiz is one of the most notable figures in the Fast and Furious franchise, partially because she is one of the series' original, but what happened to Letty in Fast and Furious following her death has led to questions from fans. Letty is one of only three characters from 2001 The Fast and the Furious to still be a major part of the franchise, along with Diesel, Dominic Toretto, and Mia Toretto Jordana Brewster, save for a brief detour into villainously in Fast and Furious 6. Letty's personality across all nine titles has remained consistent. The Fast and the Furious about in Vin Diesel, The Fast and the Furious 2001 established Diesel in his most famous role as the charismatic street racer thief Dominic Toretto. The over-the-top action film cost 38 million to make but was an expected hit, grossing nearly 145 million in the United States. Diesel followed with another. Vin Diesel, born July 8, 1967, Alameda Country, California, is an American actor and producer who is best known for his action films, not notably the Fast and Furious series. Sinclair grew up in New York City with his mother, fraternal twin brother, and African American stepfather, Larvin Vincent, a theater manager who provided him with some of his first stage roles. Whilst in his teens, he worked as a club bouncer and took the name Vin Diesel. He attended Hunter College but dropped out to pursue an acting career in Los Angeles. After finding little success in Hollywood, his only notable work was an unpredicted role in Awakening 1990. When Diesel returned to New York in 1995, his mother gave him a copy of Rick Sommer's book Feature Filmmaking at Used Car Pieces 1998, which inspired him to make a cinematographical short Multifacial 1995 about a British actor struggling to get roles. He worked as a telemarketer to raise the money for his first film feature, Strays. Diesel got his big break when director Steven Spielberg, who had seen Multifacial, cast him in the award-winning Saving Private Ryan 1998 with his appealing screen presence, shaved head, muscular psyches, Recipe wise and Thrahan charm, Diesel was soon working regularly. He played escaped criminal Richard Raddick in the science fiction film Pitch Black 2000 and reprised the character in two more films, The Chronicles of Raddick and The Raddick 2013.